Welcome to How to Turn Every Speaking Opportunity into a Client Generating Machine, Part 1. So let me ask you, what if your next presentation didn't just earn you applause, but brought in your next 7 high value clients? That's exactly what happened to me after my last webinar. And in this 3-part series, we're going to peel back that curtain and share one of the key elements in my presentation that caused that to happen. I call it making a crazy good offer. But before we dive in, you might be wondering who we are. So we're going to introduce ourselves. My name is Deirdre Van Nest. I am a keynote speaker, a speaking coach, and the creator of the Crazy Good Talks Blueprint. And the Blueprint is a proven training system where we teach entrepreneurs how to transform their voice, meaning how they speak, how they write, how they convey their ideas, into an engine for business growth. And I've personally built my company, Crazy Good Talks, from the ground up by turning speaking opportunities into leads. And one of my biggest passions is teaching other businesses like you how to do the same. And so I'm about to have Francesca introduce herself, but people often ask us, well, like, where do you begin? Where does she end? So basically, I teach you how to create presentations so you get leads and clients from the stage. And then Francesca creates all the back end systems to turn those leads into business. So, Francesca, can you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. So I am Francesca McClinn. I'm a copywriter and a marketing consultant. And I specialize in the after speaking on the back end systems and emails and funnels that you need to turn leads into amazing clients who get the value of what you do. I got my start in the financial services industry back in 2006, knocking on doors with Edward Jones. And I learned a lot about prospecting and a lot about connecting with people, which is why I love speaking so much. And after that, I turned into the marketing side. I built a whole content program at Snappy Kraken. So I've seen firsthand millions of data points into what converts and what doesn't. And I'm so excited to partner with Deirdre and be part of her amazing community and teach folks how to create amazing offers and the systems that turn them into clients. And I am so passionate about helping you and folks like you build a pipeline of amazing clients who get the value, and are happy to be a part of your world and a part of your business.
Awesome. I love this. And this is our first LinkedIn Live. I know I've been a guest on one. I don't think you've done a LinkedIn Live yet,
No,
right,
this is
Francesca?
my first. I'm
Okay.
really stoked.
Okay. So I've never hosted one. She's never hosted one. We have prepped all that we can, but give us a little grace with this technology because we're learning as we go here. This is building the plane as you fly it, as one of my mentors, Lisa Sasevich, likes to say. So you're gonna pull up, Francesca's gonna pull up some slides. We're gonna dive into the teaching, but I can't see. Do you see if people are here? Because I can't see it on my end.
Actually, no, I can't really tell it either. I'm going to assume that
Okay.
people are here because that's super exciting.
Okay.
And I
So
think
if
people are
you
going to be
are,
floating in.
well, and I think maybe we can see like typing in the chat, right? I know we had a number of people, like 40 or 50 registered. So if you are here, if you could type in the chat why you're here, why you chose to spend this hour with us, that would be amazing. And if you have any questions for us or comments as we're going, please put those in the chat. I will be looking at the chat and we will be going back and forth. And we want to get as many of your questions answered as possible. So, Francesca, I'll hand it to you and we can dive into the slides and start this conversation.
Absolutely. So one technical note, there is always a little bit of a lag with a LinkedIn Live, between the streaming software we're using and LinkedIn. So we may not be able to get to your question right away, but we will go back through and we will answer all of the questions that we get.
Okay.
So yeah, Deirdre, let's jump right in. Let's talk about, why do we make offers from the stage? Talk me through
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah, we make offers from the stage for a number of reasons, but the most popular are you can't cover everything you possibly know in a 30 or 60-minute talk. And raise your hand if you've tried to do that early on. Oh my gosh, Francesca, one of my first presentations ever was to a group of moms of kids under 5. And I was like a fire hose. I'm like, I want to teach them everything I know. I want to give them everything I got. And these poor women haven't even slept. right? And there I am giving them everything. And we do it out of a desire to serve. But the truth is, we can't cover everything, nor should you try to. So you want to just give a slice, go deep on one slice. Like today, we're just going deep on one aspect of offers. We're not giving you everything on offers. One aspect is you can't cover everything. And so you want to make an offer to take the next step so you can give them more. So that's number one. The second would be you're filling a need, right? People have needs. There's things that are missing in their life. There's gaps that will, if it's filled, will get them from here to there, and your content can help fill that need. And then the third and final reason is it is the best way to get great new clients. I've been saying this since really, let's say I started my speaking career in 2008. And I'd say by 2010, I fell in love with it and was so convinced this was the best way to get clients that I became a coach and started teaching others. And after my webinar experience 6 weeks ago, where we had, dozens of strategy sessions and 7 great new clients in just a few weeks, I just am committed as ever on how powerful speaking is for great clients. Do you have anything you want to add to that, Francesca?
Yeah, when I talk to clients about teeing up, their sales and their marketing and incorporating speaking into their marketing, I tell them it's about opening the gap.
Love that.
We're all, whatever, regardless of what business we're in, we're all in the business of transformation. Folks come to us to get a better version of themselves, a
Mm,
better version of their business, a better version of their life, especially if you're a financial advisor, a better version of their retirement. And part of the job of our speaking is to open a gap between where they are now and where they want to be, and not give them the whole thing in the talk. Like, one, you literally can't. There's no way that any of us could distill everything we know about today offers, for you speaking, for me marketing, for some
right.
of our, folks in the audience, what the value prop that they offer. You cannot distill all that in a single talk. So your job is to create a curiosity loop to get them just engaged enough and excited enough that they're willing to take the next step.
Love that. Love that.
So there are a few different types of offers that we make. And Deirdre, I know you and I went back and forth on how deep we wanted to go.
Yes.
And what did we decide?
Well, we decided we're going to focus on the first and the second, the free gift and the free strategy session, because paid offers are a different animal. Just real briefly, if you're doing a paid offer, you need more time, you need more skill, you need more props, if you will. Like if you're in paper, you're going to need ways to take money. If you're virtual, you're going to need ways to accept money. But there's a lot more that goes into a paid offer that we are not going to get into here today. That's like your advanced level. And most people are using the free gift, free strategy session model anyway. So we think this will serve the majority of the people that would be tuning in today. So do you want to kick us off with what a free gift is?
Yeah. So a free gift is basically anything. It could be a lead magnet is a word. It could be some sort of a free guide. Oftentimes it's something tangible like a PDF or a quiz or an assessment. And it is ideally going to be something that is tied in some way to the talk, to the audience, and helps them take that next step. Like it could be going deeper in what we talked about today. It could be assessing what you need to do next. But it's something that you've created that has value, and we're going to talk about different ways that you can do that later, and tangibly is something that they can take away.
Yes. And typically, we want our free gifts to be digital because this is how you actually get email addresses and can have a nurturing relationship with a person who may not be ready to work with you just yet.
Yeah. And then we both really like free strategy sessions. Deirdre and I both build our businesses on the back of a free strategy session, which is sort of the entry point to the sales process. And that is the type of offer that you can also make depending on your audience, depending on the type of talk. And we'll get into a little bit more depth there. And it is ideally going to be something that is going to help you get the right folks to take that next step with you.
Yes. And we'll get into details and give examples as we move on.
So as a marketer, I love benchmarks, and I think a lot about when I speak to clients or if I'm assessing someone to bring them on as a client, I really want to know how well their speaking and their marketing is performing. So when someone tells me, okay, I speak and I offer a free gift, I'm immediately thinking, okay, that is the easiest thing to say yes to in the world. And I want to see an 80% opt in. That means that I want to see 80 out of 10 people in that room say yes to that. Go in, enter their email address, give you a little bit of information, and download or opt in for that. And I think free gifts are perfect for podcast appearances, short breakouts, short seminars. Like if you're doing any sort of social video and you want to give people a CTA, a call to action, a free gift. Deirdre, you use this a lot in your marketing.
I use this pretty much every single talk I give is a free gift. So particularly when I am in a situation where I'm being paid to speak, so a company invites me in to speak, I'm generally not offering the strategy session. I'm typically offering the free gift. So this is something I do very, very regularly. And yes, you want to see that 80% or higher opting in. And if you're not seeing that, then there's a couple of things. We'll go more in our next lesson in August into kind of like mistakes. But basically, if they're not opting in, then there's something in your presentation that is not jiving with them to make the connection between why they would want this, or you're not wording it in a way that makes them say, ooh, I got to have this, or you're not giving them enough time or opportunity to actually opt in. So we can talk about some of those ways to troubleshoot that in future classes here.
Yeah. So the second type is going to be that strategy session. And that is what we call higher intent, meaning there needs to be more trust, there needs to be more interest. And typically you're going to want to make that in front of a warmer, more targeted audience. So like a 45-minute talk, maybe a breakout session. If you're speaking at conferences, it could be a webinar that you're offering to your own list, or maybe you are appearing as a guest in front of an audience that you already know is going to be warm and targeted. Deirdre mentioned that she almost always does free gifts because Deirdre's a keynoter, meaning she's being paid to show up and give a broader, maybe more inspirational talk.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's typically not allowed or not appropriate to give a free strategy session there. And also, that is not necessarily a highly qualified audience. Like this may be the first session of the day. When I speak, I am typically speaking to smaller audiences. I'm not being paid to be there. So this is purely marketing for me. So I might be showing up as a coach or an expert. And so for me, I typically would offer a strategy call of some kind. And, I know that there's a number of financial advisors and folks who build their business doing seminars. And the benchmark there is ideally you want 50% plus of the room to take you up on it. And Deirdre, I know that you and I have gone back and forth a couple of times because that's not always the case. So tell me about it when you don't want that many people.
Okay, so a couple of things. I just want to go back to something you said about the different types of environments. So the environment you're in is really important in choosing if you're doing a free gift or a strategy session. And Francesca, you're totally right. Typically in a paid keynoting situation, you're not gonna do the strategy session. You are going to do more of a free gift type of offer. But when I am doing a training, or when I am doing my own events, or when I am doing a no fee engagement for a collaborator, then I am typically offering a strategy session. So I think we had 40, maybe 48 strategy sessions that we got from the webinar I did on May 14th. That is one of my partners. That's one of my strategic partners. She put me in front of her group. It was I think I only spoke for 25, 30 minutes, but because she's so highly respected, Francesca, and she endorsed me so heavily, I was able to make an offer for a strategy session and got more than 50% signing up for the strategy session. So just be thinking about the different places where you can use them. Now, if you don't get 50%, a couple of things could be going on. One, you may be in front of an audience of not your ideal clients. Like it literally may have nothing to do with you or your talk or your offer. It simply might be you are not in front of your ideal clients. So if you're consistently in situations where, let's say you're getting 20% of the room, just start analyzing, who am I in front of? Are these my ideal clients? And if they're not, then you might want to shift audiences or go, okay, this is great. The 20% I'm getting is fantastic. If it is your ideal client group and you're not getting that 50 or higher, then you have to ask yourself, okay, what's going on in the talk? There's something in the talk that isn't landing right or is missing that's needed in order to increase the number of strategy sessions. Now, there is a third option here, though. You might not want that many strategy sessions, depending on the maturity of your business and who is handling strategy sessions for you. Is it you? Is it somebody else? Do you have enough room to support it? I have several clients who have said to me, we don't have any more space for clients, so we don't want that many. I've had times in my business where we just physically can't take on that many strategy sessions. In that case, you want to add some filtering parameters to who can apply for a strategy session. And are we getting into that a little bit later on, or should I talk about that now, Francesca? Sorry, I
I
can't
think we're going to
recall.
get into that a little bit later on
Okay.
when we talk about qualifiers.
Okay. Perfect.
So yeah, and we've both had that experience where we've sort of been like, you know what, we really can't take any more on.
Yeah.
And so then I think the next question is, what do we do with folks that are not ready for a strategy session? I do want to point out that we talked about paid offers a little bit here. We're not going to go into depth there. Paid offers are really tough. If you are getting 10%, you're doing stellar.
Yes.
And
Yes.
enough said about that.
And just as a reminder, if you're here and you have any questions or comments, please type in the chat. We want to like have an open dialogue with you. So we're
Yeah.
here for you.
So I like to talk about prospect beliefs because when we're speaking to someone, frankly, when we're marketing to them in general, we're in the business of shifting their beliefs. And someone who is showing up to be in your audience typically has some problem or something that you are able to help them solve. And so we start with the very, very top of, I'm aware that I've got a problem of some kind. You know, Deirdre, when I came to you, I was just at the beginning of my speaking journey. I had all kinds of anxiety. I had all kinds of things that I wasn't really good at. And I knew that very, very well. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. I'm now aware of you. And I'm beginning to engage with you because you have a solution. You're a speaking coach.
Right.
And that's the journey. Those are the beliefs that you're taking people on. They're first becoming aware of you when you stand up in front of them. You want to get them to engage with you. You want to get them to opt in with you in some fashion, whether that is a strategy call, whether that is a free gift to get deeper value and hear more for you. Then they start thinking, oh, you may have the solution to my problem. And sometimes this happens really fast. I think, Deirdre, you and I had a conversation, and then I was like, sold.
Yes.
And other folks may sit on your list for a while before they really start experiencing triggers, or that belief gets to the point where they're like, okay, I'm ready to engage in a conversation with you. I'm ready to hire you.
Yeah, we just had someone today who was on our Crazy Good Talks Blueprint training call, the group that you're part of, Francesca, who has had 3 strategy sessions with Lillian. Yeah, so it's been a 3-year period of time, and when she joined, Lillian was like, "Yes, yes," so excited. I have someone who 12 years. It took 12 years. But then I have other people that right on the call or a week later. Like, you just don't know where people are at. It really, I mean, I love your funnel here because I think it's really indicative of how much they're aware they have a problem. Now they're aware of you and the belief that you can solve their problem and that they're ready to do something about it. I mean, they might be aware, they might be aware of you, they might believe you can solve it, but if they're not ready to address it, it's not going to happen. Right? But keep nurturing them and developing that relationship so that when they're finally ready to address it, you're there.
Yeah. And that's ultimately it. Folks are on their own timeline. You know, I would say that a lot of people who get up to speak, especially if speaking is a big part of their business, they tend to judge their success rate by benchmarks like that. How many strategy sessions did I get? How many opt-ins did I get? And ultimately, our job is to make that easy to say yes, remove the risk, make it irresistible. And we're going to talk about that later. But everyone is on their own journey. And yeah, sometimes it's going to take months or even years for someone to move through these beliefs and be ready finally to initiate that sales conversation to really meet with you.
Yeah.
So, Deirdre, you know, you and I worked together and we created your own version of
Yes.
this. Do you want me to talk it through from my perspective, or do you want
Yeah.
to?
Yeah, we
Okay.
could talk. Why don't you go and then I can pipe in? But so just to be clear, so we are each other's clients. So Francesca's working with me on the speaking side, and I'm working with her on the after speaking side to make sure I have a great funnel that actually captures these leads and helps nurture them and then turn them into clients. So this is what we're talking about now is the after. Well, we're talking about the whole process, I guess.
Yeah. So let me
Yeah.
set the stage. You know, Deirdre, I distinctly remember that. I think we were supposed to be talking for like 15, 20 minutes. And I think we were on the phone for almost 90. I remember
Yeah.
pacing around my house talking
And
to
I was
you.
pacing outside by the
Yeah.
water in
Because you
Florida.
told me that you had, you know, I knew that you were a speaker. I know that you spoke a lot and that you had this massive list. I think at one point you told me it was like 8,000
Yeah,
people on your
it was over
list.
10,000.
And you tried a bunch of email offers. You'd put all this money into email marketing and
Oh
you
my
were
gosh.
deeply skeptical.
Hmm.
And, you know, as I talked, I was like, you know what? I don't really think that email is necessarily your best channel, Deirdre, because you have such charisma and you are really fantastic in a live environment. So, really, your talks are the key points throughout your funnel. And I ended up serving and interviewing a bunch of coaching clients so that I could understand a little more about their journey and why they said yes and what brought them to you. And we learned a bunch of things about them. And so ultimately, what we built here, Deirdre, is a speaking funnel that has your, you know, one of your two major talks at the top.
Yep.
Then they get offered a free gift when it's
Hmm.
appropriate to make the offer. And you've got some great tips for how to get the most out of that. And then we send them within typically a month to a live feedback lab.
Yep.
So we're bringing them deeper and deeper. They first become aware of you at the talk. They're interested in learning more, so they download the free gift. You've got a great gift. Then they're interested in applying these things to their own speaking. So we're filtering for people who are currently speaking or have a reason to have coaching. We bring them in for a lab. And tell us a little bit about the lab.
Yeah, so the feedback lab is, and what's nice about this is that it's one of my favorite things to do. So I just want to encourage you as you're thinking of building a funnel, do things you like to do, right? Remember we were brainstorming and I was like, I don't know, Francesca, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. That seems like a lot of work, doesn't sound fun. And then she's like, well, what do you love? And I was like, I love when I get to give people live coaching on the spot. Like, honestly, I did that this morning for another group. And nothing is more fun for me in my business. And we're like, and I'm like, I got this thing I do once in a while called Feedback Lab. And she's like, well, let's make that the offer. I'm like, oh, okay. So you might have something sitting in your closet that you love that you only bring out once a year at Christmas, right? That you could be bringing out more often as your next level of engagement. And so Feedback Lab is where clients will come out, someone will volunteer to be in the hot seat and they can either share their personal brand why story or an opening of a presentation. And I coach them in real time on what was great and how to make it crazy good. And then other people can come and observe, and everybody gets tips and tricks and strategies and tools to take their speaking to the next level. Super fun, very interactive.
And at the end of that, then you're offering the strategy call because that
Correct. So
audience
that's when
is
I offer it.
way more qualified.
Exactly. And there's no, it's my audience, so I can do whatever I want. Versus if I'm on someone else's stage, then that's not necessarily the case.
So what I love about this, Deirdre, is you're basically taking talks that you get paid to give because you're a keynoter and you lead workshops. You're turning them into leads for yourself. You're nurturing them and qualifying them for your coaching offer by really focusing on people that are currently speaking and have a need for coaching.
Mhm.
And then you're offering them the first step of your sales process.
Correct.
So
Yes.
I love this funnel. And what's interesting is we've tweaked it a few times, but the bones of it remain the same.
Yes. Yes. And I want to say one thing about the list. One of the things that I did, I think I did this when we started working together, Francesca, so maybe a little over a year and a half, is I culled the list. I made a very courageous decision to get rid of most of the list because these were people that had been on my list since I was a mindset coach. So I started out, Fire Your Fear was my brand. I still have a keynote of that subject, but I'm not coaching. I'm not actively putting out content like that. So I have people who've been on the list since like, 2010. And it wasn't a super responsive list. And that's kind of discouraging when you're sending things out and people aren't opening and you're like, does anything I do matter? Right. And so I actually decided I'm going to send a couple of emails out, see who wants to be on the list, and everybody else, like, okay, we can part ways. If you ever want to come back, great. So we got it down to from 10,000, I want to say to 1,000. And then I've built it back up to, I think we're right at 2,000 now over the last year. Our open rate, we are about, let's say, I think we're at about 56% open rate. We have an
That's phenomenal.
incredible open rate. We have a great click through rate. People are engaged and they're showing up for things and they're engaging, and I get responses and people tell me it's helping them. And so if you have a list and nothing's happening, or you've been dormant. I was dormant for many years too, where I really was doing nothing. That makes the list very cold. Don't be afraid to just start over or
Yeah.
just start with the people. I'd rather have 5 people that really want to hear from me than 5,000 who I feel like I'm screaming into the ether and don't care.
Yeah. And you bring up a really good point, Deirdre, about your list. Your talks and your free gift and then your strategy call, they have to be related. You have to build backwards. The offer that you're typically making when you speak now is related to speaking coaching. So your talk and your free gift have to be related to becoming a better speaker. So what's typically the talk? Remind me the name of the talk that you
So
deliver.
there's 2 talks, but the one where I offered the toolkit that goes to the feedback lab is stand out and own the room every time you speak. Right. And it operates from the premise that, hey, we want to make our voice the engine for business growth. Every time we speak, we're auditioning for leadership. So we want to be ready and solid and crazy good in any and every situation. And we really want to stand out and own that room. So that's the premise of the talk. I give them a really great tool in the presentation that starts them out. But then I could go deeper with that tool for them to really be able to fully execute. So I give them a toolkit called the Crazy Good Opening Toolkit that takes them deeper into what I've just taught them. And so we get a really, really strong take rate on that toolkit. And then from there, there's this funnel that goes to offering the feedback lab.
Yeah. So, and I'm not surprised that, your list that you'd built up over years just wasn't really qualified for the offers you were putting in front of
Right.
them. So
Yep.
that was a really courageous thing. And I'm glad you didn't.
Thank you. I'm glad I did it too.
So we've talked about, the benchmarks that you want to hit when you speak, the types of offers. And I think there are 5 basic elements to an irresistible offer, an offer that is easy and risk-free and exciting to say yes to. And we're going to walk through these, and you may not be able to hit every single point with your offer, but the more that you get, the more likely you are for people to want to take that next step with you. So the first one, and I really cannot overstate the impact of this, your offer has to be a painkiller. It cannot be a vitamin, because pain is urgency. When I have a headache, I immediately reach for the ibuprofen. I have it in both bathrooms, in my car, in my living room. Like, I'm at the point in my life where I have ibuprofen everywhere. However, I also have a big thing of gummy vitamins, and I almost never take them, because vitamins are just procrastination. And so many of us have these high value services and offers, but if we cannot relate them to the pain that our audience is feeling and reflect that back to them, we are not going to be seeing the uptake. Anything you want to add to that one, Deirdre?
No, I think that's good. We're going to get into examples. I feel like yeah.
So leading with, moving on from the pain, we really want to focus on the benefits. What are they going to get out of this? One of your coaching clients, Mike Stromso, he said it in such a perfect way. He said, everybody's listening to their favorite radio station, WIIFM. What's in it for me?
Mm-hmm.
And so, with your offer, you could simply say, get my free speaking toolkit. And sure, that's related. But instead, how do you say it?
Discover exactly how to grab attention from the first words out of your mouth, or from the moment you open your mouth, right?
Isn't that, like, I hear as a speaker, I think, yes, of course I want to grab attention from the moment I open my mouth, because I already know that I don't before I started your coaching program. I had no idea how to do that. So that is a really benefit-oriented way to reframe what is a speaking toolkit.
Exactly. So make sure you can call it a speaking toolkit or a crazy good opening toolkit, but then you do want to connect the dots. This is one of the things a lot of speakers don't do, or a lot of subject matter experts, because we know, like, I know in my head, if you get my free speaking toolkit, you're going to know how to open, right, and grab attention right away. But you don't know that. And so as speakers and communicators, we have to connect the dots for our listener and very clearly and plainly give them the benefits. So you would just say, hey, get my free speaking toolkit. When you use this 15-minute toolkit, it's an audio and a worksheet. You are going to know exactly how to grab the attention of any audience from the first words out of your mouth. So if you're on a podcast tomorrow, you have a virtual next week, You know, in 2 months from now, you got a stage presentation, you're going to grab those people right away. Nobody in your audience is going to be bored or tuned out.
I'm actually going to disagree with you, Deirdre. I would never
Ooh.
recommend saying get my free speaking toolkit because it's too vague.
So you think don't even say it. I do
But
call it my
you
crazy good
said
opening toolkit.
exactly your
Yeah.
crazy good opening toolkit. You also said my 15-minute toolkit. Now,
Yeah.
if you said get my free 15-minute speaking toolkit, I'd be like, okay, cool. Because to me, a speaking toolkit sounds big and overwhelming, but a
Yeah.
15-minute or a crazy good opening, that's highly specific.
Yeah. Love
I
it.
like that.
Yep.
So then number 2 is, again, we really want to focus on that pain. Everyone is moving toward a benefit and away from pain. So again, we're not going to say speaking toolkit or free speaking toolkit. What do you promise?
Yeah, you're not going to lose your audience to their phone, right? This is our greatest competitor is this phone. So you have got to come up with an opening line that is going to grab them away from the scroll and onto you.
And as a speaker, I've experienced that. I've absolutely stood in front of a breakout session with, 40 people in it. And then I look out and like 10 or 20 of them are totally scrolling on their phone or
They're
they're
like
on
this.
something like that. And it's so discouraging. I want
Yeah.
to grab their attention.
And I don't think that happens to you anymore, I'm guessing.
It does not. Hopefully.
It does not.
I also
You know what
really like
people,
ones. Go
oh,
ahead.
can I say one thing? This is just a little side note. People will ask me like, okay, what should I be looking for with the audience? Like, how do I know people are engaged? And, people are really quiet. And as I'm an external learner, so I'm the person in the class and the audience who's like raising the hand, asking questions, or the teacher saying something. I'm like, oh yeah, yeah. Right. Like I'm very external. Many audiences are not. Like audiences have their own personalities. And many audiences, unless you get a few people like me in it, are not going to do that, and they can be quieter. And when I first started speaking, Francesca, that unnerved me like nobody's business until I got off the stage and I started getting a lot of like, that was amazing. We loved it, this and that. And I thought, okay, I guess some people internal, they process internally. So the only time that I would be concerned in a presentation is if you see a lot of heads down. If people's eyes are locked and loaded on you and they're quiet, that does not mean they're not engaged. A lot of people are really taking it in and processing. It's if their heads are down. That's when you need to be concerned and maybe change course and throw in an activity, have them do something so you can bring the energy up again.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So the third thing I always want to focus on, and I spoke to this a little bit earlier, was we really want to deliver a quick win. So, I spoke to this earlier. You don't want your speaking toolkit to be overwhelming. So some people think it has to be the ultimate, the 87-step complete speaking toolkit. But no, it actually needs to be super focused and offer them one quick win, which is why I like that you really focus on the crazy good opening.
You know what? I'm realizing as you're saying this, I've thought about this before, but now that you're saying it, one of my free gifts when I do the Get to the Yes Quicker, how to increase trust, connection, and likability in 3 minutes or less, that's all about crafting your personal brand why story. Francesca, I am giving them the entire why story template. I think that's probably too much. It's a heavy,
Probably
it's a
is.
heavy lift.
Yeah.
So maybe you and I can think about another option. And I do it because, and this is like most of the people who are tuning in with us now, like I want to give real value, right? I want to help you. And so there is this line between really wanting to help and give value, but not giving so much that then people do nothing. So let's just I'm just going to noodle on that. Maybe you and I can noodle on that. Maybe there's a middle step there that might be better than giving the whole template.
Yeah, I think so. I know you get a really high opt-in rate, so that's good, but
Mm-hmm.
you may be giving them too much, out of a deep desire to be like, look, here is this thing.
Yeah, maybe we just give them the first few pages, which is about how do you even identify your story. I mean, that
Mhm.
alone is valuable. So we can talk, but see, we're processing. We're always tweaking and always just trying to make it better. And here's an example of putting things out there that are good enough, and then you tweak as you go. Like, don't wait till everything is perfect before you start testing and getting out there. Just like we're doing today with LinkedIn Live,
Yeah.
right? We did as much prep as we could, and we're like, all right, let's do it and see it. And session
See
2 will
how
be
it goes.
better, and session 3 even better than that.
And that's just what you have to go, launch. Sometimes launch before you're ready.
Mhm.
And, launch with version 0 or version 1 of whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
And then wait for the feedback.
Yep.
So I think number 4 is one of the biggest ones. And we both got opinions on this. You need to be filtering qualifying people for what you offer. You may be the kind of speaker that stands up in a room in front of 80 or 100 people, but maybe only 20 of them are potentially qualified, or there's someone that you might want to work with. Point your offer to them. You talked about speaking with moms. You spoke to a group of moms. You might still speak to a group of moms today, but you're still only going to be speaking to those among them that want to be a speaker.
Right.
You don't have an offer specifically for moms. You have offers for people who want to be a crazy good speaker.
Yes.
And you and I both offer essentially some kind of marketing, but you would never offer a marketing consultation, because then
Correct.
you're going to be getting everybody that's interested in some kind of marketing go, oh, Deirdre could help me. Now you're going to offer a crazy good talk strategy session.
Right. Yes. So let's pause here for a few minutes. I have several things I want to say about them. There's a couple of different angles. So let's talk for a moment. I'm going to go back to my experience. When I first got out there, I was a stay-at-home mom, and we had moved to a new city, Minneapolis. I had no business contacts and I had no money. And so I was building my business. I wanted any and every strategy session I could get. So if that's you, if you're in a place with a new business, you might want every and any strategy session you can get. 1, because you get practice. 2, you get market research, right? And then 3, you are going to get some clients. And 4, you have the time for it. And so you might not want to filter on the front end. But as you get busier, then the time is going to get that you have to service all these clients or do all these strategy sessions is going to get smaller and smaller. So I got to a point in my career where I thought, no, we don't have the time now for all these strategy sessions. I need the people who are serious and who are ready to do this work to qualify for the strategy session. And so what I started doing was I started putting a list of parameters. And back then it was paper and pencil, and paper and pencil still works great. That's a whole other topic, by the way. But if you're in person, you don't have to do it digitally. You can do paper and pencil. You'll probably get a higher conversion rate. But I used to have these sheets they fill out for the strategy session. And it said on there, I've been in my business more than 3 years, because what I started noticing was the financial advisors and the entrepreneurs who are in business 3 years or longer are the ones who could afford my services. Less than that, they weren't able to. Right. So that was one of them. Another one was, I'm willing to devote, 10 hours a month to learning how to be a better speaker. Right. I'm willing to invest between this and this. Right. So you can think of what your parameters were, but I had parameters and they would have to check the box to qualify. Now, to this day, I have parameters on Calendly. So now Lillian, I've trained Lillian over the years. She does our strategy sessions. And if you click on our website and it says, have a free strategy session, Calendly is going to pull up. And then there's questions that people have to fill out, and they're around who you are, what your budget is. Are you ready to make a decision? Will you spend the time? So filtering can be really, really helpful to get more quality people in the strategy session pipeline. Now, the other thing that I want to add about this is one of my mentors, she's of the belief that you are selling the strategy session for the strategy session's sake alone. And you're not necessarily saying, and if we're aligned, we'll talk about what it looks like to work together. I tried that in the beginning of my career and I got way more tire kickers than I wanted. So personally, I'm of the belief of offering the strategy session to see how we might be able to help you. Like, I'm very upfront that this strategy session, yes, it's going to benefit you. You're going to take our speaking assessment. So you're going to understand where your skills are at versus where you want them to be. You're going to brainstorm with Lillian. She's going to listen to your goals. You're going to get really clear on your goals. And then we're going to talk about what it looks like for us to help you with those goals. I add that last line in, Francesca, because it does keep people who just think this is free coaching from signing up for the strategy session.
Yeah. So I think that's a really good move, and I do the same thing. And I want to note 2 separate things that you do.
Yep.
One is when you are on stage and you're making your offer, I think you say something like, if you're serious about, you have some very specific qualifying language that you use. That's step 1 to filter.
Yep.
And then step 2 is when they actually go to the booking page or they scan the QR code and they take you up on that next step, there is almost like a questionnaire of a filtering. Yes. You have to be this, and you have to be this, and you have to be this, and you have to be this. And that is just designed to filter folks out who are not serious and not qualified.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not everyone is going to want to do that. So, for example, if you're running, say, paid seminars on some sort of paid marketing, you're going to get a number of people who are not essentially pre-closed, meaning your strategy session is teeing up the rest of the process to close them. And you are going to want more strategy sessions to then turn them into the sales process and then clients. So it's almost like the job of the talk is to tee up the strategy session. The job of the strategy session is to tee up the rest of the sales process. And the job of the sales process is to turn them into a client.
Exactly. Yes.
And
Yes.
it's just that our businesses are in different places.
Right. So
So,
you get to decide how narrow or wide you
yeah,
want to be with that part of the funnel, the strategy session funnel. And it also might depend on if you're doing it yourself, you might be more narrow, but if you have someone like I do doing it, for you who's on your team and they have more time, you could maybe widen it up. I mean, it just kind of depends on your goals and probably the seasonality of your business.
absolutely. And that's actually seasonality is a really good one. Like right now, my books are practically closed. And
Right.
so I would probably be more likely to not make that offer or put a bunch more obstacles in the way versus maybe a period where maybe I'm a little bit more fallow and I'm about to tee up the next quarter, the next season, and I might have it wider.
Yes, that's great. And the last thing I want to say on this is, and I think the point here too is make sure you name your strategy session. Okay. Nobody wants to go to a free appointment, a free meeting, or a free consultation.
Yeah.
Like we got enough of those. It makes you think you're going to the dentist. No one's waking up in the morning going, "Hey, sorry. Oh, sorry. Okay, I'm a little ahead here. Sorry." But it's a good, right? It's a good segue in there, right? No one's going, "Hey, I hope someone offers me another meeting today because I don't have enough meetings on the book."
Yeah, you want that name to be really sexy. You want it, you want to be packaging all of those, the specificity of it, the benefits, the pain avoidance, the qualifying, and you want to give it a really specific name that makes it easy to say yes. So
Yes.
yeah, rather than like meeting me for 1 hour, yeah, absolutely, I want to talk to someone for 1 hour, said no one really ever. It's like get your 30-minute strategy session, get your free time bound strategy session.
Yeah, and give it a name. Crazy Good Talks, right? Like give it an outcome driven name. Get your, boring no more or right? Um, make your website pop audit. Like name it something that your ideal audience wants. I had a client that I worked with years ago who she specialized in divorce financial planning. And I said, Michelle, what do your clients say when they sit down? Like they kind of, sit down in your office, they're going through divorce. What do they say to you that they want? And she said, they just say, I want to move forward with my life. And so then we named it the Move Forward with Your Life strategy session, right? Listen to the words that your clients are saying. Maybe you have a name like I do that's already outcome driven, Crazy Good Talk strategy session. If so, you can use your company name. If not, name it something your clients want.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like you have a very outcome driven name, so you can get away with using your business
Yep,
name. The vast majority of us do not.
correct.
And so you want to keep your name typically out of the name of the strategy
Hmm.
session. And you just want to make it really, really outcome driven. And so, for example, if you're giving a talk about business growth or revenue growth, you might call it a revenue growth session.
Exactly.
If you're an advisor and you're giving talks about retirement, you might call it a retirement strategy session or retirement optimization session, if you can use the word optimization, in a compliant way. Something that is really speaking to the desires and the benefits and the pain these folks are experiencing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And this plainer the language you can speak in, the better,
Yeah.
right? The plainer the language, the more you can use plain language, the better. I always love this example, Francesca. I'll never forget. Oh, I don't know how many years ago this was now, 6, 7 years ago. Peter, my husband, lost his job. I got home from work that day and I said, okay, Peter, if we need quick access to cash, where are we going to get it? I did not say, do you think we have enough liquidity in our portfolio if we run into some sort of financial crisis? Right? No, your clients aren't saying things like that. So you want to say, you could be like access to cash strategy session. I'm making, right? I'm making a point here, but use the words that they would actually say to each other. My mentor, Lisa Sasevich, calls it pillow talk. It's the words that you say to each other as you're
Mm.
falling asleep at night and the words as you're waking up in the morning. Use those words to name your session.
And I want to point out that we all have something we call familiarity bias. All of us
Mm.
know our business really well. We typically know our industries really well. And we are just constantly swimming in this pool of knowledge. And we need to get as close to the language that our prospects and clients use as possible. So if you don't already know what that pillow talk is, what the words that they would use are, it's a great time to interview. Talk to the folks ideally that have signed up with you in the last year or 18 months or so, and talk to them. What brought you here? What made you say yes? What did you really have to think about? What were the conversations you were having as you made your decision? And that's going to surface the pain points and the fears and the goals and that language that you want to tap into.
And I love that that's one of the things you did in your work for me with my clients is you interviewed a number of clients and we really figured out why they chose me. Why do they work with me? What are the benefits? And then that's language we can use as we're speaking to them.
Yeah, I think that's super important. There's sort of a marketing adage. I wish I knew who I was stealing it from, but they basically say whoever gets closest to the client wins. Meaning the
Love that.
closer you can get to the language, to the beliefs, the dreams, the desires that your ideal client has, the more likely you are to get their business and really be in a position to help them transform.
That's awesome. Awesome. Okay. Any final thoughts that you have to wrap it up or are
No,
we kind
I
of
don't
moving
think
into the home stretch
so.
here? Yeah.
No, I think we can give everybody, some time back in their day, because I think, to our point, we don't want to overwhelm with knowledge here. We really want to scratch the surface on offers and then kind of tee things up for our next talk.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'd
And
like actually I do have one thought.
okay.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. Just to give you some context, when you are delivering a presentation, so the offer is one piece. So you got to make sure the rest of the talk is really good too. A lot of people think, oh, just teach me how to close, right? And that's all I need. That is not the case. That's why we're teaching you one key piece. But this is what we call the offer. So if you call it the close, it's actually the offer. The close, you're going to hear me close, but the close should be something you say that's inspiring, that kind of ties everything up in a nice bow. You don't want to just end with the offer. And so the placement in your presentation of your offer, you'd have your opening, you'd have the body of the presentation, then you'd have your offer, and then you'd have your closing. Okay? If you're going to have a Q&A session, your Q&A session would go where? It would go between the offer and your last piece of content. You never want your Q&A to be the last thing, and you don't want it to go after your offer before your close, because you want your offer to be coming, like you want that to be one of the last things they hear so they can take action on it. Okay. So that's just sort of the landscape of where the offer fits into your talk.
And I think that's something that a lot of us get wrong before we learn your system for it, because I am 98% sure that for all the talks I gave, I ended on a Q&A, which then sucks a lot of the energy out of the room, depending on how the Q&A goes.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure I closed maybe with the offer or something. Like I totally bobbled that because, again, there's a structure to it. And if you don't know the structure, it's hard to get it right.
Okay. Yes. Awesome. Now, our offer to you is to join us in part 2 of LinkedIn Live. So your free gift can be inviting people to another event, right? So we are going to meet on August 5th at 12:30 Eastern. It happens to be my birthday, so it'd be really fun to spend my birthday with you. And it is turning every speaking opportunity into a client generating machine. So it's part 2 of 3. And you're going to get the 5 conversion killing mistakes that might be sabotaging your success on stage. So you won't want to miss that. We hope that you join us right here on LinkedIn Live. We are so happy that you're here with us today. Thank you for taking this time. We hope that you learned something that you're going to apply right away. And I just want to remind you of this as we close out. Every time you step on stage, it's an opportunity not just to teach and to educate, but to transform, right? And not just people's businesses, but their lives. So I want to encourage you to use what you got here today and make your next talk the one that finally converts the way you want. So with that, we wish that you would make it a crazy good day. You got any final parting words, Francesca?
Don't let perfection get in the way of
Mm,
progress.
love
It
that.
is it is something that I think is so important, that work with what you have, focus on progress, get a little bit better.
Every single day, every time. We will see you on August 5th.